Baby shark-a-doo-doo-doo, Sandra shark-a-doo-doo-doo. Yeah!
Don't drop it, Tony! Don't drop it!
Bring it here.
Over here!
Hello, welcome to Trash Opinions, where we talk all things trash. I am your host, Trash, and today we are talking about Survivor Winners at War, a season that has become an adjective of sorts for a big crossover event, i.e. Super Smash Bros. Is the Winners at War of video games. By the way, I would put that theme song that plays throughout the season in F tier. It's awful. Who signed off on that thing? Jeff, I thought you had good taste in music.
Winners at war, hungry for more. Winners at war.
It's not good.
A lot of people were disappointed by this season, while there were others who will call this one of the best seasons ever, especially Jeff himself. I remember enjoying this season, but will it hold up on a rewatch and under a lens? Let's find out. Now, this player on the bottom is the player that I was looking forward to seeing back the most since we haven't had any returnees from this season, and we are talking about Danny Boatwright. Danny Boatwright had to sacrifice her Survivor legacy in order for the Kansas City Chiefs to become a dynasty. Danny is just kinda there for her entire game run, but she gets paranoid and makes a horrible move in mentioning the old school alliance to Ben, who is definitely not an old school winner. She then throws Parvati under the bus, and then she blows not only her own game up, but the entirety of the old school alliances. She sinks Ethan, Parvati, and Rob with her in all actuality. I don't know why she does it either. She just ruins everything by being crazy. She's voted out unanimously, and it just leaves you scratching your head like, how did this person win a season? She unfortunately gets the dreaded 7th place spot after hurting herself in the last leg of the coconut challenge, and that's all you can really say about her on the edge. It's a shame the only returnee from Guatemala ever has to be such a massive dud. She's going in meh. Next we have someone who went out in a similar spot, and we have Amber Mariano. Out of all the old schoolers, I feel like Amber missed the memo about this being a social game where you need to build alliances. She's too chill for the game. She thinks people scrambling is weird, when the reality is Amber can't catch up to the modern age of Survivor. To be fair, she was never a good player to begin with. The only reason she won is because of Boss and Rob anyway. She was obviously way outclassed here. On the edge, you forget she's there. I mean, her getting to be there with her husband does add a little bit of cuteness here, but at the end of the day, Amber was a massive dud on this season. She's going in meh. And next up, we have a character that nobody was excited to see, and that is Nick Wilson. Nick shills out for the new gimmick by saying fire tokens are going to be a big part of Survivor moving forward. Sure, Jan, and Trey Lance is the future of the NFL. Australia is the future of breakdancing. He tells Parvati he had a crush on her in high school in the most awkward way possible. He's basically invisible the first half of the season. Come to merge, he starts getting some content at least. He gets blindsided by the Wendell boot and flips the fuck out until Tony tells him to chill. He survives for a long time until he decides to get cute and give Ben a disadvantage in order for him to lose immunity and for Michele and Nick to take him out. But Tony convinces him to vote Denise anyway, so that all that was for nothing. Tony turns the vote onto Nick anyway for even daring the blindside Ben, and Nick has to go. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. The last member of the Edge was a dud. He's going in meh. And the last of the duds here, we have Wendell Holland. Wendell screwed himself by being the furniture guy in his last season, so now he's stuck building the shelter. Again, he doesn't really get a lot of content until being swapped onto a trial with his ex, Michele, and then he gets this really negative edit. He's shown being a dick to Michele and being really passive-aggressive, but they still vote together. It's kind of weird. Come to merge, Wendell is in a lot of people's plans, which is why Sophie targets him and he's booted at the merge without much flair. He really doesn't do all that much aside from his somewhat interesting dynamic with Michele, but there isn't much to say about Wendell on this season, especially during his time on the edge. He almost wins his way back in, but he can't finish the ball maze faster than Natalie's perfect run of it. I feel like Dom would have been much better on this season, personally. I'm gonna put him in meh. Now we have a shockingly low placement for a character of this caliber, but we have Parvati Shallow. Parvati's transformation from flirty Black Widow to adorable mom was really sudden, but I appreciated it anyway. I love Parvati teaching Ethan how to lie. It's true, Ethan is way too good of a dude for this game. Adam targets Parvati and throws a lone vote her way as the rest of the supposed numbers vote out Ethan, which is still not good for Parvati's game. She gets swapped into a situation that doesn't do her any good, separating her from Rob, and she's on the bottom with Michele, and oh, did I mention Michelle's ex is on the tribe? Awkward. Wendell tries to extort her for her fire tokens to buy his vote and save her, but Parvati doesn't negotiate with terrorists and instead gets voted out. It's the first time she's been voted out in the pre-merge. On the edge, she finds the advantage in a rock wall, the same exact spot where Aubrey found it 2 seasons ago, and I'm amazed she remembered that because I didn't. Sadly, Parvati doesn't have a story this season, and she really doesn't do or say much. As much as I love Parvati, this showing was far below the standard she usually sets for herself as a character. I don't think I could ever throw her in meh, so I think I'm just gonna throw her in cute. Next up, we have one of the most controversial winners of all time also playing a game that did her no favors. We have Michele Fitzgerald. Michelle's back.
Hey, everybody!
Michele.
It's back!
She starts off at the bottom where she's blindsided by the Natalie vote, but then she thinks she's in control during the Danny vote, but they were gonna do that anyway. Weird how that happens. She gets swap screwed into a position where she's on the bottom with Parvati, and also her ex Wendell is on the same tribe as her. Then we have this big game-changing moment, getting a fortune cookie. It inspires her to play more aggressively, which is just hilarious that a fortune cookie sparked that. I'm not sure what big moves she makes, she's just kind of letting the game take her wherever it takes her. Then she cries because she can't catch a ball going down a slope, and we get a preview of Heather Aldrett here. She has a mildly entertaining moment where she flips the giant coin onto the safe side and dances around like she's Dude Love. If you ask me, that flip wasn't even a flip. She 360'd that coin. Michele was just not a good player. She makes terrible decisions and never votes correctly. If her goal was to silence her critics, consider mission failed. 0 vote finalist club is exactly where she belongs. I'm putting her in cute. Next up, we have someone I'm a little disappointed by because I really liked her on her first outing, but here, she's just kind of lackluster. And we have Denise Stapley. Denise still carries that underdog burden coming into the season as one of the smaller names on the cast. Rob convinces the entire tribe to dump their bags at Tribal to see who has the idol while Denise has it, and Denise is just slick as shit. She slips the idol into her hand and holds out her bag and slips it in when the commotion is over. She's about to be voted out on the double Tribal, but Sandra gives her her idol, and Denise uses the idol on herself and then her other idol on Jeremy for some reason, and then uses her 1 vote to vote out Sandra. And I'm not sure why she didn't just vote out Tony here, but whatever. Vote out the one person who had her back and waste their idol. Whatever. I could see why people were annoyed with Denise on this season. It's still kind of badass to say you sniped the queen out of the game with her own bullet, even if I don't agree with the move. And no, it's not because I'm mad we lost Sandra, even though yes, I am mad we lost Sandra. Denise just doesn't really do anything at the merge other than winning immunities, and she just kind of skates by because she's not really much of a threat. Other than the Sandra slaying, she really doesn't do anything character-wise and shows she's not the greatest of the previous winners. Denise can at least go into mildly entertaining. Next up, we have someone else that people tend to be annoyed by on this season, and we have Ben Driebergen. Ben isn't one of the worst players on this entire season, but he does make some terrible moves. It's bad. He immediately sketches out Boston Rob by telling him he's being targeted and not giving him a name, and then he proceeds to give up that information anyway, so it's like the worst of both worlds. His diarrhea of the mouth at Tribal puts a huge target on his back, and he's just asking for the vote to be him. Miraculously, he's somehow not the target every round and survives all the way to Final 5. He acts super childish when he's blindsided by the Sophie vote, not even talking to Jeremy. His mask slips around Tony when he tries to hide the immunity idol he just found right next to Tony, letting Tony know Ben doesn't trust him, which of course Tony calls out in his hilarious Tony way. People fucking hate Ben, and I don't really get it. He's alright. It's just hard not to imagine someone better being in his spot spot instead. He gets a massive dodo edit. He tells Sarah he's cool with Sarah voting him out and that he wants to be a notch on Sarah's resume, which I think is a terrible plan for both people involved, but whatever. Ben just kind of gives up at the end, and nobody in the audience is sad to see him go. I guess I could throw him in mildly entertaining. Next up, we actually have Kim Spradlin Wolf. The problem with playing such a dominant game on her season is she doesn't know how to play from the bottom and can't emotionally handle it. But, I'm Kim Spradlin. Everybody loves me. Nobody is giving her any information on their first travel, and she goes to her knees exclaiming, "Please trust me," and it's kinda sad to watch. She then does what anyone on the bottom should be doing, finding an idol. Kim was never a huge character to begin with. She's just a great player who lets her gameplay be her character work. Her worst move is the move that causes her downfall when she gives up immunity for chocolate, peanut butter, and cookies. Those Survivor cookies, I swear, they must have a magical aura to them. She gives up her spot in the game with that move. As Jeff would say, $2 million peanut butter. I hope it was worth it at least. She must have been really convinced Jeremy was going home. Instead, she gets blindsided herself and Jeremy survives yet again. Kim is shown she is not Little Miss Perfect after all. However, I still feel like she comes off as one of the best Survivor players of all time. How she wasn't a huge target coming in surprised me, and she played a pretty decent game all things considered. I can put her in good player. Next up, we have one of the most rootable people on the cast, and that is Ethan Zahn. Nobody encapsulates "gee whiz, I'm just so happy to be here" more than Ethan Zahn does. Man, it's been a while, Ethan. You look grayer. Ethan is in the old school alliance with Danny, Rob, and Parvati, and it's looking good until Danny blows up their spot and they have to turn on her, with Ethan going out soon after. His Edge of Extinction content is where he starts getting a lot of his rootable moments, the log challenge especially. You just want the guy to be able to do it. You're saying, "Go, Ethan, go." And it's genuinely sad when he's being looked at by medical after falling on some rocks, and it's looking like all is lost until he picks himself up and finishes the challenge. It's super cute how the rest of the Edge joins him on that last log. That was really big of them to do. He gets a lot of really inspirational content about surviving cancer, and it's hard not to absolutely love Ethan on this season. I think it might be his best outing as a character. He left a big impression on me this season. The dude just has so much fight in him. He's going at the top of underdog. Next up, we have someone who was in a similar position of being an extremely rootable old school player we haven't seen in a long time, and that is Yul Kwon. I love how he legitimately thinks the Poker Alliance is real and actually convinces everyone that it is real. Yul opening up about his friendship with Jonathan Penner and his wife, and Stacy having ALS and how bad they've been struggling with it really touched me. This scene is so absolutely gut-wrenching knowing what happens. Rest in peace. I'm glad Yul could use Survivor to raise ALS awareness this season. Yul is great seeing here. I mean, I wish we had some content about how Yul was on Cook Islands with Parvati before she was Parvati, but Yul just seems pretty closed off to her the entire time, which sucks. Yul's tribe decided they wanted to keep Wendell over him, so he sadly gets voted out right before the merge, and it's a bummer. All the old school people are out at this point, and I'm just stamping my feet like the fuck. Yul is just way too openly strategic to last long on a season like this, but it was awesome seeing him again. Yul can go into mildly entertaining. And the winner for Most Improved goes towards our next one, and that is Sophie Clark. I love that she introduces the concept of a nerd shield, a spin of Jeremy's meat shield strategy, where she keeps smart people around so she's never the smartest one. It makes sense. Kim trusts her enough to show her the idol, in which Sophie's response in confessional is, "I am the last person she should be telling about this idol." Sophie plays low-key while also being a bit of a challenge beast. She's among the youngest on the tribe despite her win being 17 seasons ago, which makes you realize just how young Sophie was when she won. She's also the least new school of the new school players. Sophie is a social butterfly this season. She plays an incredibly sharp game and shows she belongs on this season of elite players. It makes you really want to root for her as a dark horse pick. I feel like there's an alternative universe where Sophie and Sarah take the season away from Tony, but Tony foresees that being a possible scenario and blindsides Sophie just as her alliance just became the majority. Sophie's reward for being blindsided is later winning fire tokens from a coconut carrying challenge and eating a jar of peanut butter thanks to it. Sophie cements herself as a great player on this season, and I think she can be elevated into great and put in entertaining. Next up, we have someone who is going to be always decently high no matter what season you put him on, and that is Tyson Apostle. I like seeing the progression of Tyson over the seasons, starting off as this cocky, arrogant kid, and now he's a wholesome family man who cries at the thought of his kids. It's such an adorable progression. He made a wife out of Rachel and has the American dream, the house, the car, the 2.5 kids. He won the game of life. He calls Sophie so under the radar that I forgot her name, and I just lost it. Tyson has not lost his ability to roast people. Him calling Boston Rob a portly chap set me. He comes into this game as a gigantic threat, and as much as Tony wants to use him as a meat shield, he gets taken out instead. Tyson eating the peanut butter on the edge is pretty great. I enjoyed him admitting that he enjoyed eating it because it was both sneaky and hilarious. He earns his way back into the merge, manages to survive a couple rounds until Tony now wants Tyson gone, despite wanting him around as a shield in the pre-merge, and Jeremy goes full I'ma head out during tribal council. Sarah steals Denise's vote, and Tyson is left as the boot once again. Tyson was almost the first boot from his tribe, but manages to win his way to the merge, and he's entertaining throughout his run in his typical Tyson way. While nowhere near the best appearance as him as a character, I'm gonna throw him in entertaining. And in a similar position of always going to be high no matter what, we have a quite controversial figure on this season, and that is Sandra Diaz-Twine. As the only two-time winner on this cast, she's viewed as more of a threat than all these other threats. Imagine that. All these former winners, Superman, Wonder Woman, strategical masterminds, Boston freaking Rob, and the biggest threat on the board is the little Puerto Rican grandma. Sandra just proves time and time again that if you put her on a season, she will give you plenty of great character moments, because her personality produces endless entertaining content. Why was there never a Sandra reality show, like a Keeping Up with the Twines? Sandra is incredibly entertaining here as always. This is the season where the sit-out bench officially becomes christened as the Sandra bench. What a queen. However, she makes the dumbest move in her Survivor career, where she gives Denise her idol to vote out Tony while keeping Sandra's hands clean, which Denise uses the idol to vote Sandra out of the game with one vote on day 16 instead, where she went out in Game Changers. Weird. Sandra was in a good position, and if she makes the merge, there's a chance she could make it to the end with Tony and Sarah as this Game Changers alliance. I mean, it's a pipe dream, but it could happen. Considering all the other threats around, shit, she might be able to Sari Fields it. Regardless, she still played a way better game than I thought she would on this season, and it's amazing how well she can adapt to the modern game. After getting to Edge of Extinction, she decides, nah, I'm good. And I'm not going to struggle on this bullshit island for 3 more weeks. Fuck all that. I'm not getting back in anyway. I'm just going to hop on the shuttle bus. I've seen people have a lot of vitriol towards Sandra for quitting, and I've heard their side of things. They say as a Survivor legend, she should show the game more respect, but if you ask me, she did. She was voted out, and then she left the game, which is how it works on 95% of the seasons. It's funny, the same people who would chastise Sandra for raising the flag are the same people who would complain about the Edge of Extinction as a twist. If you ask me, it's not a quit. She just played the game and lost. I don't understand why people are so bad about it. That being said, this wasn't the best Sandra outing, but Sandra on her worst days is still better than most Survivor characters on their best days, so I'm still putting her in entertaining. And at the top 8, we have Jeremy Collins next. Woo! Jeremy's back, and he gets to play with a surefire ally in Natalie Anderson, and everything's looking good for Jeremy. Oh, they just voted out Natalie first. Oh no. He works his way into the majority regardless, along with Michele, until a swap puts him at a numbers disadvantage with only Denise as his sole Sele partner, and Denise for some reason uses her idol on him. I'm not entirely sure why. Jeremy then gets the safety without power advantage, where he gets the nope out of tribal council and hop on this shuttle bus back to camp. He gets a bad feeling at the Tyson boot, and he was correct. It buys him 2 extra rounds in the game and allows himself to be only the decoy vote for 2 blindsides. He then has this moral dilemma where he needs to decide if he wants immunity, with Tony feeling like Jeremy doesn't trust him or be vulnerable and keep his idol and his relationship with Tony. He decides not to play his idol as Tony's giving him a shoulder rub, letting him know he's not the majority vote, which he is not. Success. After surviving that vote, he decides to target Ben, and that ends up being his downfall. Tony doesn't want to get rid of Jeremy, but now he has to, because he'd rather roll with Ben, which is a correct read. Ben's not a threat. Jeremy is. Jeremy is always fun, no matter what, and there's no exception here. He's for sure, for a third time, going into entertaining. Next up is someone I wasn't sure I should include as the first boot or as the runner-up, so I'll just do both. And we have Natalie Anderson, the first ever winner, first boot, and runner-up. Though Parvati and Tina came close to being all three, despite Natalie only playing 2 seasons. Natalie loses the Mexican standoff that is the first tribal council. I've never seen a council where that many people think they're all the target, and paranoia is that high across the board. She finds the extortion advantage with help from Parvati and uses it to extort 6 entire fire tokens from Tony. She becomes the queen of the edge. She even uses her vast knowledge of the island by instantly knowing where an advantage was based on a single hint. People on the edge view her as Wonder Woman, and with that edit you would assume if she gets back into the game and gets to the end, most of them would vote for her. One would assume, but instead, Natalie plays the role of Chris Underwood, but worse. She doesn't make a single strategic move when she makes it back into the game. She plays it safe by finding idols and using them on herself, and the jury sees it for what it is. If she really wanted to win, she should have put herself in fire-making against Tony and won. While in that scenario, I would put my money on Sarah maybe winning, I feel like it would have been close at least. I mean, it would have helped if she bothered to build relationships on the edge too. Natalie just doesn't do anything flashy after all that work to get back in, buying every advantage and idol she can. She was just begging for a rootable edit, but she was just never given one. Instead, you're dreading the possibility of seeing the first boot win the game over Tony and Sarah. I can totally see an alternative edit where Natalie is this massive underdog figure going against 2 titans, but no, instead it's, okay, cool, Tony prevented someone who didn't deserve it from winning. Still, Natalie is a blast this season, and it sucks she just kind of peters out at the end as a character when she should be soaring like a phoenix. Natalie's at least an entertaining. Next up, we have someone I'm surprised is this high, actually. At number 4, we have Boston Rob Mariano. It's great seeing Rob's journey from this young, cocky, arrogant homophobe to a salt-and-pepper-haired, wholesome dad. Rob is just as great as he's been on his past few appearances, and we get the added benefit of watching him and Amber play together again, kinda. She's voted second, and they meet on the edge of extinction, but yay, they're together on television again. Everyone who loves Robber is happy. Cool. Rob somehow convinces his entire tribe to dump their bags at tribal council to see who has the idol, which is just wild that they agree to do that. He's on the bottom. I mean, there's no reason to listen to him. He manages to do something similar on the edge when he's having everyone be frisked for fire tokens when he knows he has all of them. Adam tries to strong arm him into turning on Parvati, only for Rob to snitch him out to the rest of the tribe in an effort to get the target off the old schoolers' backs. It doesn't really work and Ethan is taken out. He then tries the buddy system 2.0 and making sure Adam and Ben stay together with him so they don't go running off making other plans. It doesn't work, and Boston Rob gets taken out. Unfortunately, he just comes off way too strong and is way too domineering, but that's just Rob's personality. It doesn't help that he's pretty pretentious and doesn't show these other winners the respect they deserve. Rob is kind of a dick. Yeah, he's always been a dick, but he's getting his comeuppance more than usual for it. He's still an entertaining dick, though. This is fully media-trained Rob, so the guy knows how to perform for the camera. He's always had this ability to connect with the audience because he knows how to speak directly to them through the confessionals. He understands more than anyone, I think, that he's not talking to the producers. He's talking to the world. He almost gets back into the game at the merge, which would have been wild, but instead it's Tyson. He cracks his elbow open during the coconut challenge, and it's really brutal. I immediately go, I thought I'd never see Boston Rob bowing out of a challenge, but then he surprises me by not even giving up. Even after the challenge is over, he's still grabbing those coconuts. It makes you remember Survivor. Oh yeah, Boston Rob's the man. He comes close to winning his way back the second time but falls short, and this is most likely the last we will see of Rob on Survivor. He spent half a year total playing Survivor. That's insane. They give him his flowers on the season, and I'm gonna give him his here. This outing, he goes into entertaining. Next up, at number 3, we have my boy, Adam Klein. Adam, at first glance, looks like he doesn't belong on this cast of athletes and badasses, but boy am I glad they decided to cast the nerd winner on this show. I love how awkward this kid is. He doesn't know where the hole to put his torch is, and he doesn't know how to put a lid back onto a pot. Adam just makes terrible decisions all game, and it's hilarious. He's immediately on the outs with Denise when they go to the well together for a little bit too long, and now he has to scramble. He then decides to tell not only Ethan that he's targeting Parvati, but also Rob for some reason. I just love how he has the stones to attempt to out Boston Rob. I don't know how he wasn't voted out at every tribal council he was at. He's such a nervous, emotional wreck at the merge, and he becomes convinced the podium has an idol on it. I've never seen Survivor South Africa, but I'm told there was a season where there was an idol hidden on the podium at tribal council, so that's most likely where he got the idea from. Superfans are gonna superfan. The tribal where he attempts to play the podium is just hilarious. Jeff plays with him as he gets his hopes up a little before crashing them down. Adam is thoroughly entertaining during his entire run, and it's like a comedy of errors. He looks at the superhuman achievements of people on the edge and goes, how the hell are you guys doing this? Adam is the only relatable member of this cast. It just makes me more glad he won Millennials vs. Gen X. I adore Adam. Once again, he can go into love. And I would say with the 2 names remaining, I think it's obvious which one is number 1 and which one is number 2. But here at number 2, we have Sarah Lacina. Sarah and Tony get to play yet again on a season together. Sarah gets to steal a vote for 1 fire token, but she also needs to sneak into the other camp to find it. Okay, so what's the point of the fire token then? Whatever. So then she gets Tony in on it, and Tony has this brilliant idea to use ash as camouflage, which doesn't stick, and it just makes them laugh.
Whoa, is that blackface, dude?
Sarah gives up her reward to Nick for his birthday, in which the rest of the tribe correctly dismiss it as a game move and not just something out of the goodness of her heart. She tried. She starts her own Survivor fashion line, and it's really entertaining how annoyed Tony gets by it. She gets completely blindsided by the Sophie boot and tells herself, Sarah, don't get pissed, only to yell at Tony within earshot of the entire camp. You sunk my game. I'm fucked now. These people don't want to work with me. She is pissed. She's extending it to beyond the game. This might have fucked up their actual in real life friendship. I mean, it doesn't, and instead Cops R Us just becomes an alliance 6 years in the making. Tony had to blindside her in Cagayan at the merge. Tony was knocked out too early for them to play together in Game Changers, and now they get to play together to the end in Winners at War. It's kind of insane they played all 3 of their seasons together, and one of them wins all 3. They're the greatest strategical duo in Survivor history, in my opinion, and it's not even a contest. However, when she describes a gender bias causing the difference in perception between her and Tony, and listen, there are tons of gender biases on Survivor, and 9 times out of 10 I would agree with one being pointed out, but this is not one of those 9. This is the one. Tony is clearly outplaying Sarah the entire time. If Sarah was outplaying Tony, I would see where she was coming from, but she's not. Sarah's a great player, but Tony is in a league of his own. He's the Tom Brady of Survivor. Sarah cements herself as a top 10 player of all time on this season, though. She loses in the most emotional fire-making challenge we will probably ever get, and it's so heartbreaking seeing Tony cry over having to eliminate her with Sarah comforting him. It should be the other way around. Tony needs somebody to keep him leveled. In Cagayan, that was Trish, and in this season, it was Sarah. Sarah played one of the best non-winning games I've ever seen, and she puts herself in the Survivor Hall of Fame with this outing. Sarah Lacina 3.0 is definitely a favorite. And number 1, obviously, there's a clear MVP. It is Tony Vlachos. Hey, we have an all-jersey Final 3. What's up with that?
What's up with that? What's up with that?
Tony understands he needs the idol, but he also can't look for the idol, because of what happened to him on Game Changers. Tony has to keep a low profile, which is not what Tony's good at. Tony then has this crazy idea out of nowhere to build a ladder out of bamboo and use it to climb a tree to get some breadfruit. I'm surprised production didn't stop him and go, no, Tony, you're not getting yourself killed on our time. Him singing Baby Shark and then screaming while running while holding a thrashing shark is also a comedic highlight of the entire season. I love how excited he gets over getting the extortion advantage, even falling over, like really hamming it up, only to be super bummed out that it's being used against him. This is illegal. He's all excited when he thinks he's going to be doing the extortioning, but when it's being played against him, he thinks it's a horrible twist. Him playing both sides works out for him because he somehow is able to mooch fire tokens off his fake alliance to pay his extortion bill. It's amazing that so many people let him borrow fire tokens. He then has another amazing scene with his brilliant spy nest, an evolution of the spy shack and spy bunker. Just this time it's up in a tree. The scene of him asking if he can eat and Jeff saying, "No, you cannot eat, you just run immunity, brother," and then it cutting to a wide shot of Tony alone with his arm up looking sad is one of the highlights of the entire season. It's so funny. That argument he has with Jeremy over how many days in a week there are, giving me war flashbacks back to the bodybuilding forums in 2008. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Tony is absolutely ridiculous. Tony has such a hot streak after laying low for the first few episodes, and it's impossible not to root for the guy to take it all by like episode 8. He dominates his way to the end. Never having his name written down once, I've never seen a game as good with a high as a playing field as this. While it would have been nice to see more strategy from this season, Tony leading the charge in the edit at least made it incredibly entertaining. This season is peak Tony. He's even reduced to tears when he's forced to eliminate his number one ally in Sarah in firemaking. It's the most emotional and intense firemaking challenge ever. If ranking them all, I would probably put this at number 1. Tony cements himself as the king of Survivor this season, the sole survivor on the season of Kings. It's probably the most impressive win I've ever seen on the show, and you gotta give the man his props as probably the greatest Survivor player to ever play Survivor. A man like Tony should not have won twice, let alone once. Who let this happen? But he did. He did convincingly, twice. Yeah, Sandra won twice too, but comparing Tony's wins to Sandra's wins, it's like night and day. Obviously, Tony's are better. Sandra won a season by actively failing everything she was trying to do. Come on. Tony 3.0 is a character so good, I needed to rename one of my tiers. I, henceforth, will now be calling the Queen tier the Royalty tier, and Tony is going right there, up there with the best of the best. Tony is amazing. Royalty. And that was Winners at War. Easily the worst part about this season is the fact that all the old school players get voted out before the merge. Sophie's the least recent winner of the pack that survived the pre-merge. That's wild. Now, I will defend the Edge of Extinction, but I will never defend fire tokens. That shit overcomplicated an already complicated game, and I hope it never comes back. They should definitely do the Edge better if they ever bring it back, which I doubt they ever will, but if they do, maybe don't bring them back at Final 5 with an idol. It's kind of a ridiculous advantage. The only reason I like the Edge is that it gives us every character for an entire show. It worked for this season. Even if it didn't affect much, everything about the Edge was going against Tony's game, but he overcame all of it to pull out that W. Anyway, what do I think about the season? I actually thought it was really good. Sucks at the very end the pandemic hit, so the entire finale had to be over Zoom, but what are you gonna do? Good season overall, with a few weird points, blame Jeff for that. Anyway, we are finally into the new era. Up next, we have Survivor 41, and I will say, I kinda hate how we lost season names with the new era. Seasons are now 41, 42, 43. What is this, North Korea? Will I like the new era, or am I a crusty boomer who can't let go of Survivor's past, or am I a little bit of both? Let's find out on Survivor 41. Alright, and if you made it this far, thank you so much. You're amazing. I hope to see you in Survivor 41. Goodbye.